Okay, welcome to another video. So for those of you that have been subscribed to the channel for a little while now, you might remember not too long ago we received a laptop from the guys at Kubuntu Focus in order for us to do a review. So the model that we tested at that time was the M1, which if you haven't watched those videos, there'll be links in the description to both of them. But to cut a long story short, I really did quite enjoy the time I spent with that laptop. So I was very happy when I was offered the chance to check out their newer model, the M2, which I have now been using for a little over 2 weeks as my daily driver. So here are some final thoughts on this newer revised laptop. But before we jump straight into that, the target market for the Kubuntu Focus is for users that need a powerful and portable machine for tasks such as cloud development, content creation, robotics, gaming or 3D modelling. So, the capabilities that I'm mainly interested in are its gaming prowess and of course its ability to increase my overall productivity when it comes to things like content creation. So I'm going to mainly be judging its performance from those angles. So we're going to start with the unboxing process, but we're really not going to spend too much time here as there's nothing that I can say here that I haven't said in previous videos, as it's pretty much identical from the first laptop we received, even arriving in the same box design. Inside the box we get the laptop itself, a collection of manuals and guides, a cleaning cloth, which I can definitely appreciate, a YubiKey and the charger plug and cables, which unfortunately they have sent me the American version again, so that means I had to hunt through my random cupboard of cables and bits and pieces until I found one that fit, but after that we were pretty much good to go. The overall build quality of the Kubuntu Focus M2 feels like a slight upgrade from the previous model. The chassis exterior is built using aluminium and it does feel very strong and sturdy in my hands. There's still a little bit of flex around the screen, but not nearly as much as I found in the previous model. I also appreciate that the charging port is at the back of the device as opposed to on one of the sides, so it does look a whole lot neater on your desk. You get the same nice finish with the logo centered on the top, which I'm actually quite a fan of. You get a full HD 15.6 IPS display with 90% sRGB coverage. The viewing angles are brilliant and for the most part the picture does retain its quality no matter which angle you are viewing it from. It has a non-glare matte finish and is 144Hz. The size of the bezels on the side of the screen are nice and small, and the top bezel isn't too much bigger, however you do get quite a large bezel at the bottom of the screen. So the top bezel in the centre is where you'll also find your webcam with the physical shutter, but we'll get into that in just a moment. Moving on to the keyboard and touchpad, the keyboard doesn't really differ too much from the previous model. It provides a pretty decent typing experience and features the number keys to the right hand side. It's got a good amount of travel and features good backlighting effects with multicolour LED. That will help you when you're in slightly darker rooms. And of course you also have the Kubuntu logo on the left super key, however it doesn't feel quite as smooth as the rest of the keyboard keys and might be prone to fade a little bit over time. The only real complaint about the keyboard is the lack of a full-size enter key. I did find myself getting used to it after a few days, but before that I would often miss it when trying to hit it with my pinky finger. The touchpad is a reasonably sized pressure sensitive glass surface with two mechanical buttons below it for left and right clicks and features multi-gesture support as well as scrolling support. I don't really have many complaints here, but in an ideal world I would perhaps prefer the touchpad just to be a tiny bit larger. Moving on to the port selection, you get a very decent mix here which does allow you to connect to a lot of additional external accessories and drive up to 3 additional displays running at either 4 or 8K. So you get 3 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, 1 Thunderbolt 3 port with DisplayPort, 1 mini DisplayPort, 1 HDMI 2.0 port, 1 gigabit LAN Ethernet port, 1 2-in-1 audio headphone or headset 3.5 jacks, 1 2-in-1 audio out 3.5 jacks, your Kensington lock, multi-card reader and of course your DC power in. So the specs of the particular device that got sent to me are as follows: 32GB RAM, which can of course be upgraded to a maximum of 64, a Samsung 970 Evo Plus SSD, an RTX 2080 Super and an 8-core 10th gen Intel Core i7-10875H. So when you power on your device for the first time, you'll notice that they've also gone through the trouble of setting up drive encryption for you for that little bit of added security. So with specs like that, it will mean this device is no slouch when it comes to performing most tasks. And I'm pretty happy to say I have no complaints in this department. Recording and editing videos on images has been an absolute breeze on this device, as you would probably expect. Comparing the render time of the exact same video using the exact same version of Kdenlive on my desktop is pretty much night and day. As you can see by the numbers on the screen here, the Kubuntu Focus finished the render quite a bit faster than my desktop. Now of course my desktop is quite old these days with quite underpowered hardware compared to the Kubuntu Focus, but as a reference point this really did make a massive difference and makes the pending upgrade even more urgent. Gaming wise, I played quite a decent mixture of games, including some single player and esports titles, but the game performance that I was impressed with the most was Doom Eternal, playing the native 1080p resolution with the graphics settings cranked all the way up. Gave me anywhere from about 140 to 180 FPS while playing it using Proton with Steam. Now I also use this to test out some distributions in virtual machines using the pre-installed VirtualBox application. It handled multiple VMs all running at the same time with no problems whatsoever. Here are a few little benchmarks that I'll put on the screen here, like the Blender BMW render test. So the Samsung 970 Evo Plus SSD is a fast device and does help speed up the boot time of this laptop. Running a quick read benchmark using GNOME Disk Utility gives us an output of 3 GB a second. So the only thing I will say is that when you're doing anything intensive on this device, and even sometimes when I was performing light tasks, the fans do ramp up to a noise that I can even hear over my desktop computer. Here you can hear the fans in full force, and note this audio has not been turned up. So it would have been nice if they had managed to get the fan noise down from the previous model we took a look at, which also did sound like a plane attempting to take off when it was doing moderate to heavy tasks. Aside from that, I'm super impressed with how this laptop performs. So moving on to the battery life has got a slight increase in this newer revision and is now quoted to run for as long as 6.5 hours on the integrated GPU and a max of 4 on the dedicated GPU. From my own tests, I can confirm this to be a fair assessment of what most users can expect of this device. So I was getting around 5.5 hours on the integrated GPU while doing general browsing, watching videos on YouTube and some office oriented tasks. So moving on to the webcam and the integrated microphone, it appears that nothing has really changed here compared to the previous model, so you are indeed still going to be getting that 720p goodness, with the integrated microphone and physical shutter at the top centre of the screen. So I spoke about not being super impressed about the webcam in previous videos I've done with the older model, and as nothing has really changed in this department, my thoughts are still the same in this regard. However, I recognise that this isn't specific to the Kubuntu Focus, and even the new MacBooks that were recently released are still also using a 720p camera too. So my complaints is more representative of laptop makers as a whole as opposed to being Kubuntu Focus specific. And this is what the webcam and microphone look and sound like. Very nice. So I'm not really too happy about the webcam quality, especially when you consider that we're kind of living through a world that's navigating through a stage where a lot of work is being done from home and meetings are taking place virtually. I would much rather see a better camera in the future. So this brings me on to the quality of the built-in speakers. The speakers are located at the bottom of the device on the left and right hand corners, and the sound they produce is only okay. They're a little tinny for the most part and lack any real punch, but that's what a decent pair of headphones are for. So here is what the speakers sound like. So moving on to the software side of things, I'm not going to spend too much time on here because I did cover this in previous videos, but every Kubuntu Focus comes pre-installed with a modified version of the KDE desktop environment. So the machine we have here is based off Ubuntu 20.04. You'll find a decent selection of applications installed out of the box that should be enough for most users to get up and running. For example, you'll find Google Chrome, Firefox, VirtualBox, GIMP, Kdenlive, LibreOffice, plus many more. So the way the KDE desktop has been set up here isn't usually how I would set up KDE, but I have been using it in its default state Much like the first time we featured the Kubuntu Focus Laptop. You'll find your panel is positioned to the right hand side of the screen, which isn't a common approach you'll find in most desktop environments. For those of us not used to this kind of approach, it does take some time adapting to this kind of workflow. Once you've been using it for a few days though, it does slowly start to become second nature. Of course, this can all be easily moved to the top, left or bottom sides of your screen by right clicking on the panel and making any changes you might wish, including the size, position, widgets and items. On the desktop you have the same couple of widgets we found in the last video that should help you get accustomed to using this device, including the keyboard shortcuts. One thing that I'm not a huge fan of, and I did mention it last time, is how the screen edges have been set up at the top and bottom of the screens. So a cool thing about the Kubuntu Focus laptops is just how easy they are to open up and get inside. All it took for me was a single Phillips screwdriver and a little prying tool, and after a couple of minutes the back popped off without any real force needed, and we can take a look at how the laptop has been laid out internally. So this makes for one of the easiest laptops I've ever opened in my time, and I love the fact that they don't use any weird screw types and can all be done with tools most people should probably have lying around. So to wrap things up, my final thoughts on the Kubuntu Focus M2 are it is a definite upgrade from the previous model we took a look at, and if you are looking for a custom built laptop made specifically with Linux in mind, this might be the right laptop for you. Prices start at $1,795 for the base model, but if you're quick you might be lucky enough to snag it in time to get the discount of up to $400 for the Black Friday offer. Each machine is built to the spec you request and will be with you in just a few days, making for a pretty quick turnaround, and you get a warranty of up to 2 years. With each purchase there'll be a direct contribution donated to the Kubuntu Foundation. However, if you're not a huge fan of the KDE desktop, it might be worth skipping this in favour of something else. If you have quite light workloads, you probably won't really need all of the power that the Kubuntu Focus gives you, and would be better suited finding a laptop more in line with the specifications you need, and you'll also probably save a fair bit of money. That's been my review and final thoughts of the Kubuntu Focus M2. I know there's a few things that I would like to see it make into the next model, and one of them is definitely a better quality webcam. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join the Discord, and if you really like what I do, you can also support me on Patreon. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.